favorite mugs, which is how many people have you killed today?
How can I kill the person in a new and different way?
The readership of crime fiction is 80% women.
I tend to murder people in very pleasant ways.
We are not really crazy about the idea of the act of murder,
I've used a zucchini.
but everything that leads up to it and is around it. That's what I think we like.
Women are always, some sort of frustrated way looking for justice.
When you read a murder mystery and you open that book, you know at the end the good guys are going to win, the bad guys are going to get punished, and order will be restored.
If somebody's done something terrible, if they've killed people, we can get them.
He lights up. How cool is that? Well, we have the 4th anthology. There was the call for contributors, and I knew what I wanted to do. Brad and I went on holiday. Well, we went to Australia, and there's this beach called Boomerang Beach. And I get this idea, like, what if he was to bash my head against the rocks and then throw my body into the ocean? Like, there was no one on the beach, right? So no one would ever know. He could get away with this murder. A story pops into my head in that second. Boomerang Beach, boing. Sometimes they find things really funny when I've meant them to be really disturbing and twisted. And then I'm like, oh, okay, you found that funny. Okay. I think this really sums up my childhood. We were completely lost, and I think we had no supplies except some chocolate or something, so always adventurers, my family. I loved being a South African. I loved it with all my heart. Kaleidoscope picture number 1 would be the feed room in the back of the stables. Number 2 would be discovering a wooden box. It was my first treasure box, and it was amongst all this rubble, but I loved it. But then I remember a little kid dying next door in the swimming pool. How could the water be so calm after a child had died in it? My uncle was in the army. They would collect ears of terrorists that they'd killed as souvenirs. They weren't terrorists. And there were these people who lived in the hills, they were white people, and they'd be bandaged with torn pieces of shirts. A family of them would go by, and then I'd say, who are those people? And then Dad would say, not people we want to get involved with. White suburban South Africa was an extremely vain, materialistic society. No one wanted to talk about anything. When it seemed like South Africa was an isolated, terrible atrocity, but then I grew up and emerged into the world, and it wasn't isolated. People are not good. Politicians are dreadful, dreadful creatures. But if you turn it into a fictional story, you can try and write a happier ending.
This one says, if you were in my novel, you'd be dead by now.
He's as dead as a kipper.
There was always this kind of uncomfortable feeling with what many sides of the family were doing for a living. I was shown very early how to handle a gun and also how to handle a knife. A family saying was he died cleaning his gun. And of course that means he was taken out. I figured out pretty quickly that my great uncle was very involved in the mob. When I was in my uncle's house, I remember he had Quattrocento statues, Virgin Mary and Greek sculpture. And I got this very cold feeling because I understood very well that this wouldn't have been purchased. You're supposed to love and respect your family, but what if your family is this one? How do you reconcile that? I don't know. And I think that's why I play in the area of gray instead of black and white. I think I'm the only one of the Mesdames who does that.
That's my latest one, The Goddaughter Does Vegas, which is when she actually gets married.
So I got this idea and I thought, what if they are the most bumbling mob family you ever saw? And then this is their goddaughter. She doesn't want to be in the mob, but she's always being dragged back in to bail them out. I said, I can make that funny. Some people might say, why would you write about the mob? But they're meant to make light of things that perhaps in my past bothered me too. By ridiculing something, we make it less powerful.
Now I put you in the corner, Jane. You're sitting in the corner, and I got out my rocking chair for myself. So
It's funny, when I was reading it over again, it's long.
Somehow you make ordinary events creepy.
where did you get the creepiness? I just need more creepiness. If it's going to be a creepy story, I need more creepiness.
What I love about the Mesdames is you always have somebody to call on.
My brother-in-law was murdered. He's the one who did time for armed robbery. He was the getaway driver, and he drove the only white taxi in Brampton. And what did he use as the getaway car? Anyway, it's just...
Lemon pie, everybody?
Oh, yes, please. If somebody was allergic to peanuts, and you just put a tiny bit of peanut butter around there, then you could sort of offer them a glass. I got married and wanted to stay home and be a good little wifey. I was just at the very tail end of that generation. After 6 months, I went nuts. I knew I had to do something. Okay. Uganda.
I was lucky enough to be on the Canadian contingent to a World YMCA conference in Uganda in 1973, the year that Idi Amin arrested a lot of Americans and put them into prison.
But, oh my Lord, we were a wee bit scared.
Idi Amin was a very interesting dictator. He could be charming, but we were followed.
Our rooms were bugged.
It was terrifying. Within him lurked true evil. So I became fascinated with evil and how it's there under the layers. I realized after having babies that I was totally mad. I was driving my first young child, and while I was driving, I was thinking, now if somebody comes and tries to hijack the car, I'm going to run him over. And I realized, Jane, what the heck are you doing? Anybody is capable of murder. And so I love writing about North Toronto matrons who find a way to fight back and get away with it. I find it's fascinating what everyone is capable of.
And that's it for those.
She's the face that launched 1,000 biscuits. I recognized maybe about 10 years ago that not everybody felt like they had to be doing something every waking moment. It's like you're trying to validate your worth in some way. My sister was 19 when she took her own life. She was 2 years older than me, and we were absolutely best friends. She was very outgoing, very gregarious, blue-eyed, willowy blonde with a big laugh and a great sense of humor, and very smart girl. But I grew up in a very violent household. My father was a violent alcoholic. He was a highly intelligent person who didn't realize his own potential. I think I hoped she was coping, but she was a master at hiding what she was really up to, which was ending her own life. She was a very, very sad person underneath it all. There was a lot of guilt for a lot of years. Why her and not me? I mean, I felt very strongly that I would have been the lesser loss. I've often tried to explore that without even realizing it. Like, I'll be halfway through a work and realize that I've lost a character to suicide 3 chapters back and didn't even know it. So I keep killing her off in suicides, you know, and trying to understand why somebody cannot be saved. That's a tough one. We can't save. In real life, we can't save people. So, you know, in our fiction, I guess we try. She shocked me to the core of my being by doing that, and really made me rethink my own depression. The real guilt lies in being given a life and not using it. I think that's the real crime, you know? I find that my work is now finally starting to veer into some other areas, although, not to give too much away, but my story in this book, I just realized, has a suicide too. Damn. I don't know. I must have known on some level. In this case, it was the father. So, you know. Do you want some lighter material? I could get a cigar.
Very good. Come in. Oh, I even wore my garden party hat. And voila.
There is a drive amongst crime writers to want to see chaos restored, but there's also an element of trying to explore that chaos in a safe environment. When you're safely removed from it, it can be really fascinating.
Do you know, one thing I value about being in this group is that you can have really bizarre, dark thoughts, and nobody thinks they are.
Exactly, love. Yeah, I can really write like the piece that I want to write, the way I wanted to write it. And I think all of us do that.
Writing allows us to get out all these thoughts and frustrations that we have. It's a way of getting through hard times.
The restoring of order, the bringing of justice is satisfying, even if it's just on paper.
Yeah. So guys, we've been talking a lot about our new book, so here it is.
Yay! It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Here we are.
Whether we're as the Mesdames or whether we're just as fellow authors, we're always going to be there for each other. That's how I see us.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers. Fabulous new anthology.
To murder that's justified.